What's up, everybody? This is Cody, aka DFS Prodigy, coming to you live with Daily Fantasy Talk Show. We're basically just going to give you all our core three picks at each position, including defense, and we'll kind of just go from there. And unfortunately, Taysom Hill's not quarter or tight end eligible, so you must have to play him in quarterback in order to win you $1,000,000. So we'll just kind of go from there. Like I said, give you our core three and see what we can do. So how's it going, man?
Oh, it's going good, man. Day before Sunday. Nothing can be more exciting than that.
So we'll start off the quarterback position and just kind of go from there. So up top, from my point of view, I'm loving me some Aaron Rodgers. I'm all over him in this matchup against Indy. Xavier Howard is not the same corner that he has been before, and Indy has faced pretty easy offenses, in my opinion. So I do have Darius Leonard, which is kind of scary to me, but I'm all over Aaron Rodgers this week, especially given that this week is not having high price quarterbacks like a Mahomes, like a Prescott, so on and so forth. So you're going to have to basically find your way in the quarterback mix up. So at top for me, I like Aaron Rodgers. Who's your top quarterback in the top range?
Yeah, so I'm liking Justin Herbert there going against the Jets. Pairing him and Keenan Allen or even Mike Williams, is a good option. And if you wanted to play a punt play, Jerry Guyton in there too. Obviously not all in the same lineup, but you can pick and choose from there. Herbert's been playing really well, thrown over 300 yards, and I think all but one or two of his games. So right there, that's the extra bonus that you get with Herbert. And he's just been playing so well now that they have a running game. That's the only thing that kind of scares me because Balaj got a lot of carries last week. Keenan Allen had his season low in targets, but I think they're going to start getting back to a more balanced offense, and that serves well for Herbert.
Exactly. So in this middle range, I'm all over Matt Ryan. I think Matt Ryan is having basically an easy matchup against New Orleans. New Orleans defense is not at all scares me whatsoever, especially with Calvin Ridley now back, Tyler Gurley coming in recent form. I'm just loving Matt Ryan. I think he's underpriced at 6,300. I think he should be more of a 7K option or at least around Ben Roethlisberger. But I love me with some Matt Ryan. I think he's going to air the ball out. I think that if they try to basically compete in this highest scoring matchup, I think Matt Ryan's going to easily throw over 40 times this game. So give me some Matt Ryan shares in this middle range. Who are you liking in the middle?
Yeah, middle isn't my favorite to be honest, but if I had to choose someone in the middle, it would probably be Matt Ryan. But if I was going to take a little pivot play, it would be Cam Newton. Cam Newton's rushing upside is certainly there going against a terrible Houston defense. Looking back at it, Cam Newton hasn't had a great week since Seattle, really. He's been scoring right around 20 fantasy points, a little less. So, that'll shift the ownership, but you saw what he did against Seattle. He scored 38 fantasy points. And I know Seattle's not a very good defense either, but they had Jamal Adams at the time. So, it wasn't the worst version of their defense. And you saw what they did against Arizona the other day. So I think Cam Newton definitely has some upside. He's just been taking a couple weeks to get back when he took the leave from COVID. He looked really good against the Ravens last week. And I think he's on the up and up. And I think he should be a decent option there at 6'2".
For sure. I wouldn't mind running Cam Newton either just as a naked play or with Jacoby Myers, which we'll talk about later on the wide receivers. So down below, if you had to basically pay down, I wouldn't mind getting to some possibly Phillip Rivers on the other side of the ball in this Green Bay matchup if they're going to try to compete. I think Phillip Rivers has thrown the ball a ton, and he's basically coming back with T.Y. Hilton. If you look at his game log, he didn't look that bad against the Tennessee Titans defense, which is supposedly supposed to be really good. So if you look at him, I mean, he's played Detroit, he's played Cincy, he's played good defenses and has looked pretty well. So I think down here, I think at 5,600, I wouldn't mind taking a shot at him with the T.Y. Hilton combo. Who are you liking down here in this low value range if you had to go down there?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, just to choose one guy, it's really hard for me. So I'm going to kind of talk about two of them. So I like Alex Smith as one guy. And then one guy who's a little up from here is Joe Burrow. Those two guys, I think, are the best values of the week just because, Joe Burrow's got to throw the ball a lot. They're not going to – Giovanni Bernard is not a workhorse. They don't have Joe Mixon. So, the closest thing that they have to a workhorse is Samaje P. Ryan. And how many carries is he going to get, So Joe Burrow's been throwing the ball a hell of a lot. You can see it right there. He hasn't had less than 37 attempts in the last 4 weeks. So he's going to throw the ball a lot. It's going to be about taking care of the ball. It's going to be not throwing picks. It's going to be not fumbling, which honestly is okay with me. And then you got Alex Smith right here, who threw for almost 400 yards last week. Didn't have a single interception, but of course he didn't have a touchdown. So he ended up only scoring about 19 fantasy points, which is still really freaking good when if he has 1 or 2 touchdowns in there, he's probably in the Millie Maker lineup at his price. So Alex Smith is a guy going against Cincinnati this week who really should be popping off, and I'm hoping his ownership stays low just because of his price point, but I think he's going to be pretty popular.
Most definitely. That's where we're kind of looking at for quarterback. On the running back side, with CMC out at the 9,400 price mark, you always can go down to Mike Davis. But let's just start at the very top. You have Alvin Kamara, Dalvin Cook, and Derrick Henry. So if I had to choose between these top 3 running backs, it would have to be Dalvin Cook. I think Dalvin Cook should thrive against his Dallas defense. He should easily just run all over them. I'm not scared of this at all. I think Dalvin Cook could easily get you another, who knows how many fantasy points a game if we've seen his last game log. He's got you 15, 42, 51, and then 19. So there's anywhere between 19 and 50 points he could easily get you. And then Alvin Kamara, I kind of wanted to tie into this also, facing the Atlanta Falcons defense, which doesn't scare me at all either. He'll probably be the main guy. We'll see him in the Wildcat. We'll see him run as a wide receiver. We'll see him running as a running back. He's all over the place, so I wouldn't mind getting some Alvin Kamara. Who are you liking up top?
Yeah, I'm right with you, honestly. You got Dalvin Cook. Dallas is allowed they're second worst in the NFL in rushing yards per game. So Dalvin should thrive off of that. He also has the receiving upside, obviously not as much as Kamara. But I really like Dalvin Cook tomorrow. He should eat all day. I think this will be a fun game to watch with the running backs, Dalvin Cook versus Zeke. I think it's going to be a lot of running the football tomorrow. Yep. Obviously, with Taysom Hill playing quarterback at the Saints, there's going to be a lot of people running the football. Alvin Kamara is a guy who, I just got myself mixed up in games. Okay. Disregard that last comment. I was looking at Alvin Kamara and thinking, all right. But regardless, Kamara is going to get involved, as he always does. He does have a steep price point at 9.2, but that's just because of his receiving, ability out of the backfield. And I think whether it's Taysom Hill or Jameis Winston at quarterback, it's not going to change the fact that Alvin Kamara, once he gets the ball in space, he's probably the top 2 in the NFL in the ball with space. And Dalvin Cook, those 2 guys, they should be priced right next to each other. Like you said, I do prefer Dalvin Cook just a little bit, just because of defenses. But those guys are both very good.
Exactly. So looking at this mid-range, this is kind of interesting mid-range to me with Mike Davis and Chubb and Jones and Sanders and so on and so forth. It's just interesting me in the 7K, kind of high 6K range. But like we were talking about earlier, Zeke is 6,500. Why in the world is Zeke 6,500? There's no telling, honestly. When you have James Conner at 66 and Kareem Hunt at 67, I'm loving Ezekiel Elliott this week. He has looked bad, as y'all know. But you look at the quarterback he's been playing with. You can't blame him when he's with that awful quarterback getting you 8 points, 6 points, 14 points, so on and so forth. But we know how Zeke is. We've seen the games where he's got 27, 23, 17, 21 points, and he's only 6,500. He could easily blow up with Andy Dalton back. So in this range right here, I'm locking and loading Zeke Elliott. I think this will be a good play. I think people are going to basically look at him and think, why is he 6,500? Or they'll think, well, I'm not paying 6,500 because of how bad he has been. So it's basically, do you trust him? Do you not trust him? I'm all in and trusting him at this price point of 6,500. Who are you liking in this range right here in the high 6K range?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting. I think a lot of ownership is going to go to Mike Davis again, just because Detroit is literally, as you see there, 32nd against opposing running backs. But then at the same point, Mike Davis was really high on last week and flopped. So it's going to be interesting to see where his ownership is, because I think that's going to dictate kind of where Zeke's is. Because Zeke should not be in this price point, as you said. Even if he was going against a good defense, he shouldn't be at 6,500. Minnesota's defense, not great. It's just middle of the pack. They're not, top 10 against the run. So Zeke is definitely a guy who I will be having plenty of. But
Yep.
Mike Davis again, he's got the receiving ability. So I think those two guys are going to be really interesting to watch in terms of ownership tomorrow.
Same. So kind of in this range, it's a little also interesting to me because of you have a guy like James Robertson, Madison, so on and so forth. But I'm not really getting to any of these guys other than Zeke in this price range. I mean, I could see you get to some possibly Aaron Jones, but that's a little scary to me, and I'd rather just stack them with the receivers with Rodgers. But down here below, I'm kind of on the same train as you, like we talked about beforehand with Kalen Balaj. So Kalen Balaj is 5,600. He's took the carries away from Justin Jackson. 18 carries, 15 attempts for around 70 yards and getting you a TD. We know he has a receiving ability with 6 targets and 34 yards. Basically, I'm all in on the Kalen Balaj train. I think that he will be high owned more than likely, but I'm loving that either way. Give me some Kalen Balaj and give me some Duke Johnson down here. I kind of want to talk about two guys. Duke Johnson, yes, he did fail everybody last week. We know he did, but he's still getting the carries. And he's facing the New England defense, which I think this game will be a shootout. I'm all in on Duke Johnson as a receiving option, so on and so forth. So talk to me about the guys down here that you like.
Yeah, so like you said, we're both on the Kalen Balaj train. He got plenty of carries last week, looked really good. And obviously Eckler's still on IR, so we're not gonna have to worry about him losing any carries to anyone other than maybe Justin Jackson or Contavious Pope. But another guy I really like down here who had a really good week last week was JD McKissick. And I think I'm going to be pairing him a lot with my Alex Smith lineups. He's been getting a lot of the backfield. He's even getting some goal line carries in there, which is interesting. He had what? So he had 8 attempts last week and he had a touchdown. So and he had 6 yards. So that was a goal line carry. And then look at the targets. 14 and 15 since Alex Smith has taken
Crazy.
over a quarterback. He hasn't caught all of them, but if he even has one game where he only misses 1 or 2 targets, dude, he's a top end receiver. So the fact that he's down at the 5K range in running backs is redonkulous. Lock and load JD McKissick, uh, and maybe pair him with Kalen Balaj, and you can spend up on receivers all you want. So I think this is a guy you want to lock and load tomorrow, especially going against Cincy.
Go ahead and talk about your guy in Burkett also. I know you like Burkett
Yeah,
down here.
Yeah, so actually, it was interesting. When we were first recording this, I hadn't seen this yet, but Sony Michel was actually activated off of IR just now. So the only thing, I still like Burkhead a lot, but the only thing is that's probably going to take away a goal line carry or two for him. So it's going to be interesting to see. Sony Michel's price at 4K. Now, I don't think Sony Michel is going to take the work away from Damian Harris. For all of you guys who are like, oh, should we play Damian Harris this week? Yeah, I think you should. I really do. I think Damian Harris is going to take the load of the carries. I think Burkhead's going to be the receiving back, and then there's James White too. I mean, there's a ton of running backs in this New England backfield now. Now Sony's back, so I'm still liking Burkhead. I'm just not as high on him as I was, and it's just going to be all about who gets the touchdown for them.
Exactly. So moving on towards the receivers, as y'all know, I like to pair up my quarterback with my receiver. Of course, having the combo, you kind of have to do that. You can't really just do a random quarterback with a random receiver. You got to pair them up and go from there. So if I had to pair him up with my dude Devontae Adams, I like Devontae Adams, but I also like the pairing of Alan Lazard if he does play at 4,600. That's a value play that I like a ton in him. So I'm just, like I said, kind of pairing my receivers with my quarterbacks. I mean, Julio Jones with Matt Ryan, your boy Herbert with Allen, so on and so forth. Just the guy I'm not liking in this range is AJ Brown. I think he's overpriced. But who do you like in this range at the top of receivers?
Yeah, so like you said, you want to try to pair your receiver with your quarterback. So I'm going to have a couple Justin Herbert lines. So you'll be seeing some Keenan Allen in there, maybe some Mike Williams. I'll be having some Alex Smith lines. So Scary Terry's looking good, and even Steven Sims or Cam Sims. Both those guys have been pretty good. But yeah, Terry McLaurin's just been a beast with targets. I mean, 9 and 8 in his last 2 weeks. 7 receptions each game, touchdown against New York. So he's one of those guys that can really get up there in points, and he's really their number one guy. So you don't have to worry about Steven Sims taking it away or Cam Sims, because they just got nothing on them.
Exactly. So the guy I kind of wanted to talk about though is Jarvis Landry. So Jarvis Landry has been an uptake in targets basically with 5 targets, 11 targets, 6 targets. Now with OBJ out, he's had bad weather games, which I'm hoping the rain will kind of pass through in Philadelphia. But he's looked good given that OBJ has been out. Also gotten here and Emmanuel Sanders. I like Emmanuel Sanders, which is pretty cheap at only 4,900. I mean, with Tre'Quan Smith possibly going to be out with a concussion, I could get to him. And I can get to a guy with my Phillip Rivers stack in Pittman Jr. Pittman Jr. has been a beast lately. He's got you over 100 yards last game. He's looked good. He's getting you targets. He's been the number 1 guy on the team now, basically suiting up for the Colts. So I'm just kind of pairing my guys with low-end guys. Like you said, I mean, you can go down here. But I do like Michael Gallup also at only 3,700 with Andy Dalton now back. I wouldn't mind getting me some Gallup shares. So basically, that's where I'm kind of looking at. Who you're looking at basically in the value range for your receivers.
Yeah, so one guy that we scrolled past was actually Jacoby Myers. He's been getting a lot of receptions, and I think he was priced at like 4,900 or something like that. Yeah, like he's definitely been a volume guy lately for the Patriots, and they don't have a huge passing game, but I mean, look at those targets, man. Like 14 targets against the Jets, 10 against the Bills, 7 against Baltimore, and Baltimore and Buffalo are good defenses. So like you're seeing these targets in these tough games when Cam Newton doesn't know where to go with the ball. He's going to Jacoby Myers. 4,900 for a guy who has just been racking up the targets. Really like that. You talked a little bit about Brandon Cooks earlier. The one thing I will admit about the New England secondary right now is we don't really have speed. I assume that J.C. Jackson will be on Will Fuller tomorrow. So that leaves Brandon Cooks going against, I don't even know, and I'm a Patriots fan, so it's a little scary. But Brandon Cooks definitely has the speed. He could definitely hit a big play. But I think that's kind of where he is. He's better GPP just because he is dependent on that big play. And yeah, I mean, like I said, Jacoby Myers, dude, he's just got such a nice price. And don't fall for the Marvin Jones trap tomorrow, because I think a lot of people are going to play him because there's no Kenny Galladay. But the Panthers, even though their run defense sucks, their pass defense has been pretty good. So I like maybe a guy like Quentin Cephas or Marvin Hall. Those guys that can just get one play touchdowns just like that. I think those might be the better play, but if you do want to throw Marvin Jones in, I can't hate on you for it.
Exactly. And you even have T.Y. Hilton at 4,200, which I'm looking at also. You have a ton of value on this slate with receivers with Tim Patrick. If you want to do a flyer in him, CeeDee Lamb at 5,000, so on and so forth. So you have a lot of flyers down here for cheap prices that you can definitely get to in order to pay up at running back. Going over to the dreaded
Sims at 3K.
Yeah, Steven Sims at 3K. I was also like
Wow.
going down to the dreaded
5 targets.
tight end position. Tight end
Yeah.
is not great this slate. I mean, you don't have Taysom Hill, unfortunately, so you can't play him in tight end, which I know everybody's crying about. But so, I mean, Mark Andrews, Hunter Henry, Hayden Hurst, so on and so forth. There's guys on the slate that could easily get you points, but it's just scary because of how basically inconsistent they are. So I wouldn't mind getting to some Mark Andrews at 4,900. I like him a lot up top. Jonnu Smith is a guy who's not seeing as many targets as Adam Bursker is, which is kind of scary to me. So I'm not on that train. Or Hunter Henry, which is I know a guy that we both, me and you, like. He's been basically consistent this season. He just needs the TDs. So who are you liking up top for tight end if you have a pick and choose?
Yeah, so I'll be playing at 20 max tomorrow. Probably getting about 60 to 65% Mark Andrews, maybe 70. Just because I know that he's going to get targets. I mean, against the Pats last week, that was a crappy weather game. He still got a decent amount of targets. I mean, Lamar's having a down year. Mark Andrews is having a down year, but Mark Andrews is the guy. He got 9 targets last week against New England. And now that Nick Boyle's out, I don't even know who they'd be playing at tight end behind him. So it's going to be Mark Andrews and Mark Andrews only out there at the tight ends. Obviously, they have Marquise Brown on the outside, and then they got guys like Willie Snead that apparently only blow up against New England just to ruin your showdown slates, unless you had them somehow. But yeah, I really like Mark Andrews. His floor is pretty high, I think. Hunter Henry, same way. I think his floor is pretty high. going against the Jets, but he is kind of touchdown dependent, which is why I'm getting a lot more Mark Andrews.
Exactly. I also don't mind Hayden Hurst at 4,400. If we've seen his targets at 8,774, I mean, he's getting you the targets and the yards. He's not getting you the TDs. So I wouldn't mind Hayden Hurst. Jared Cook as a pivot on this slate, I wouldn't mind getting to either. As a sneaky guy I know you like also. But just last game kind of scares me a little bit. But if you look past it, I wouldn't mind Jared Cook. Austin Hooper, don't mind him either being back with Baker. But again, targets is scary for him. So, like I said, this is just a scary kind of tight end slate. Dalton Schultz, I wouldn't mind Dalton Schultz now with Andy Dalton back. So we've seen his targets still stay up, even with a bad quarterback play. And last but not least, Logan Thomas is a guy I'm looking at also, which we've seen him have good blow-up games. I mean, 66 yards, 60 yards, 42 yards, so on and so forth. So tight end, like I said, I'm probably going to play a lot of tight ends, just kind of fill it in from there. Do you have any last thoughts on the tight ends before we move on to defenses?
Yeah, I mean, there's not too much to offer here, really. I mean, Jared Cook is, he's really touchdown dependent. But with Taysom Hill in at quarterback, he does like to take the deep shots, and I think Jared Cook is the most vertical guy on that offense right now. So I think that he could get, some deep targets. It's whether he brings them in is going to be the difference between him being in the Millie Maker and him putting up a goose egg. So Jared Cook's going to be one of those volatile guys. It's probably a GPP only play for me. And then Logan Thomas, again, kind of touchdown dependent, but has been racking up the targets. So I don't mind him there, the low price that he's at.
Exactly. Moving on to defenses now. Defenses is just, it's going to be an interesting week because of how high-powering offenses these are. I know we both agree on the Dolphins. I love me some Dolphins this week against Denver. I think Denver is just not a game that they can get to. I mean, Dolphins, we've seen them up and down, but they're facing Drew Lock and an awful offense in the Broncos. So I wouldn't mind getting some Dolphins. Chargers would be interesting with Joe Flacco, but Joe Flacco can't haul that ball down the field, so that's a little scary to me. Steelers, they're playing Jake Luton, so I wouldn't mind paying up for the Steelers, but who are you liking on the defenses?
Yeah, I mean, I think I like the Steelers, but I think their price is just too steep for me this week because I think there's a lot of areas that you can kind of take a value in, and I think defenses can be one of those. We talked about the Dolphins. Drew Lock really hasn't been the same Drew Lock this year. He's been dealing with a lot of injuries, and I think that's really affecting his play. And I think Miami can definitely, take advantage of that. They've been playing real well. Probably one of the best defenses in the past few weeks. I do like the Browns defense going against Philly. Philly doesn't really have a guy on their offense that scares me right now. And with the Browns, they get sacks, man. They've had at least 2 sacks in the last 3 games, and that's just bonus points, man. Like they'll probably allow a touchdown or 2, like that. It's an NFL game, but I mean they're gonna have the chance of that defensive touchdown and maybe a strip sack. And Carson Wentz does not take care of the ball very well. So I kind of like the Browns defense as kind of the pivot defense this week.
Straying away from the NFL, I just got news that Brandon Van Lee did sign back with the Raptors for 4 years and $85 million. So now he's back with the Raptors. He got paid.
Who was that?
Brandon Van Lee.
Ah.
He signed back with the Raptors for 4 years and $85 million. So he got paid. So I just got news on that. But he's been wanting to get paid for a while, and now he got his contract. And I'm glad that he's not going to the Knicks, to say the least.
Yeah,
So,
I'm just shocked at Davis Bertans and how much money he got because he got way too much. 4 years, 80 million, I think it was. Like,
yeah,
man doesn't even start.
It's been a crazy NBA free agency, which we will have content for that when that season does start. So, wrapping up this NFL slate, do you have any closing thoughts, man?
No, man, just good luck to everyone tomorrow. Let's make some money.
Same. So that pretty much wraps it up for us. Shout out to Daily Fantasy Talk Show for joining me once again. And this is basically our ending wrap up for the NFL slate. Have a good one, everybody.
Let's go.